My name is Alex. I'm a college student, and I've always done most of my studying at night. I work mornings, so by the time I get home, eat, and try to rest a little, it's already evening. The nights are the only time I can really focus. Fewer messages, fewer calls, no traffic outside, just silence. About 6 months ago, I moved into this apartment. It was on the top floor of the building, 5 stories up. The big selling point for me was that there was no one above me. No loud footsteps. It was perfect. I'd been living there for maybe 4 or 5 months, and nothing strange had ever happened. No weird noises, no issues with the building. It was boring in the best way. Every night was the same routine. I'd sit at my desk near the window. Same lamp, same view of the dark street below. Around midnight, I'd make coffee and study until 2 or 3 in the morning. The night it started, I almost didn't notice it. At first, it blended into the background. I thought it was just the pipes, or the building settling. It was this low, slow sound, like something heavy being dragged across a surface. Not scratching, not tapping, dragging. I remember pausing my music and just sitting there listening. The sound stopped. I waited a few seconds. Nothing. So I went back to studying. A few minutes later, it came again. Longer this time. Slow. Uneven. Like wood being pulled across concrete. I stood up and walked to the window, thinking maybe someone was moving something outside, but when I looked down at the street, there was nothing. No people, no cars, no movement. The sound stopped again. I felt kind of stupid standing there in the dark, so I closed the curtain, sat back down, and tried to focus. That's when it started again, and this time I knew exactly where it was coming from. Above me, from the roof. That didn't make sense. I was on the top floor. There shouldn't be anything above me except the roof itself, and I'd never heard anything like this before. Still, the sound was clearly overhead, dragging, stopping, then dragging again. I kept listening, trying to figure it out. It wasn't random. It felt like whatever was making it was changing direction, like something was being pulled back and forth across the roof. Eventually, I convinced myself it had to be maintenance or something. Maybe the building owner was doing some kind of late night work up there. It was after 1 in the morning, but I decided to go check anyway. The moment I stepped into the hallway, the sound stopped. That alone made my stomach tighten. I walked down to the end of the floor where the roof access door was. It was closed. I tried the handle, locked. I put my ear against it and listened. Nothing. I stood there for maybe a full minute, total silence. So I went back inside. Less than 30 seconds after I closed my door, the dragging started again, louder this time, directly above my room. I went back out into the hallway. It stopped. I went back inside. It started. I did this 3 times before I couldn't ignore it anymore. It only happened when I was inside my apartment. That night, I locked my door and slept with the lights on. The next morning, I called the building manager and asked him if anyone had been on the roof. He said no. I described the sound. He kind of laughed and said, "Old buildings make noise, temperature changes, wind, metal expanding and contracting." I wanted to believe him. That night I tried to study like normal. At first everything was quiet. I remember thinking maybe he was right. Maybe it really was just the building. Then, a little after midnight, it started again. This time it didn't sound like one object being dragged. It sounded like multiple points of contact, like something wide, something heavy. The sound went on longer, didn't stop as quickly. I sat there, not even pretending to study anymore, just listening. It moved from one side of the ceiling to the other, then it paused, and then something hit the roof. Not hard, but deliberate. 1, 2, 3 dull impacts. Then the dragging started again. I went back to the hallway. The sound stopped instantly. The door was still locked. I stood there longer this time, my ear pressed against the metal, my hand on the handle, waiting. Nothing. I went back inside. As soon as I sat down at my desk, the sound resumed, and it was closer, directly above my bed this time. That night, I barely slept. Over the next few days, I tried everything to ignore it. I wore headphones. I moved my desk to a different part of the room. I studied earlier. I studied later. It didn't matter. It always started after midnight, and it always followed me. If I was at my desk, it was above my desk. If I moved to my bed, it moved above my bed. If I went into the bathroom, I could hear it shifting position overhead, and it always stopped when I left the room. By the 4th night, I started recording it on my phone. Listening back to the recordings made it worse. You could hear the weight in it, the uneven pressure, the way it would pause, like it was listening, and then continue, then change direction. I called the police the next time it happened. They arrived around 2 in the morning. As they were coming up the stairs, the sound was still going, dragging, a little faster than usual. When they reached my door, It stopped. One officer stood in my apartment and listened. Then the other one went to check the roof access. They unlocked it, went up with flashlights. No one was there. The roof was completely empty. No equipment, no tools, no signs that anyone had been up there recently. They came back down and told me it was probably an animal, maybe something in the walls or the ceiling structure. Then they left. Less than 5 minutes after they drove away, the sound came back, violent this time, fast dragging, then multiple impacts, like something being dropped over and over. My ceiling light trembled, dust fell from the fixture onto my desk. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I asked the building manager if I could transfer to a different unit. He said nothing was available. That night, the sound started earlier than usual, around 11, and this time, it didn't stay in one place. It moved, from one corner of the ceiling to the other, then directly over my head, and then it just stopped, for a long time. I lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling in the dark. My heart was pounding. Then something scraped, directly above my pillow, slow, short, back and forth, like it was testing the same spot, over and over. That was the night I packed a bag. I didn't even wait for morning. I grabbed some clothes, my laptop, and I left. I stayed with a friend for a few days until I could find a new place. I moved out about a week later. The sounds never followed me. Nothing strange has happened since, but sometimes when I'm awake late at night and everything is quiet, I catch myself listening. Not for noise, but for weight, for movement, for something that only seems to exist when you're alone enough to hear it. And what still bothers me the most isn't that I never found out what it was. It's that whatever was on that roof never made a sound until I was there.